that's tight on cash. And not only that, but it's not just focusing on bringing computer science to high school, which is something that with a lot of these sort of innovative strategies and approaches, even STEM stopped at high school, right? That's where we started. What was really exciting about the code work, and I'd love to have Kiki talk more about the elementary modules, and it was really starting with even the basics of mousing and how to use a computer, to then moving the kids very quickly into sequencing and looping and computational thinking and algorithms and using the real terms and not sugarcoating it. And I think there was a lot of nervous teachers and administrators in the building thinking that we would even attempt to put computer science in our schools at such a young level. So we started with just a CS Ed Week and an hour of code. And what was brilliantly clear very quickly is that not only can they do it, they can do it really well. They can do it much better than even the high schoolers. It's exciting. It's changing conversation in classrooms. So really having just one event, one CS Ed Week 2 years ago, we went from a district having no computer science to having a district now that has computer science in every building, K12. So all 14 of our buildings have computer science in some way. So it's the idea of making sure every kid has the opportunity. But even at the elementary school level, we have 44 teachers across our district who are now trained in the Code.org modules. Code.org is not our be-all, end-all. It was a kind of a gatekeeper. It opened the doors. It is allowing our teachers to learn right along with the students. But after I have a teacher that's Code.org trained to bring computer science into their classroom, they are constantly coming to me with more modules and more apps that they found. There's the Foos and Box Island, and I use the Ozobots and these different tools that they're using now to extend and go further. So that's one of the huge benefits we found to bringing code to our district. It's teaching our teachers, it's teaching our kids. But Kiki, tell everybody a little bit more about the actual elementary curriculum and what it looks and feels like.
Yeah, well, I actually wanted to jump on a couple of the things that you said, because I think you said that so brilliantly, and there was a lot of stuff in there that people might just kind of hear and let go, but it's kind of important. One of the things is there does tend to be a lot of fear about bringing coding in the first place. And a lot of that has to do with the vocabulary, because a lot of it's very big and very intimidating. But we do find that computer science is a language. And just like with other languages, kids actually learn it easier than adults do. And you actually see more types of problem solving having little ones work on coding problems than you would seeing a high schooler or even a college student work on those. And then the other thing was that Code.org is not the be-all, end-all. What we do, and we do really well, is give an introduction for people who are just beginning, who are timid, who need some scaffolding and kind of a step-by-step, almost self-guided tutorial, so that we take some pressure off of the teacher. We train the teachers. We show them what good learning looks like in computer science education. And then after that, we want everybody to kind of graduate. We want teachers at the end of every year, whatever age class, to say, okay, the Code.org stuff was fun, but look what we can do with Scratch. I mean, Scratch is such a much more rich and full-bodied platform. And now that we've opened the door with the vocabulary and the techniques, and the teacher is now comfortable with coding, we can explore some of that stuff we never would have explored before. So as an organization, our goal is not to hog the area. Our goal is to be a beacon to everybody, to say, hey, look at this, look at this. Okay, now go play with everybody else's stuff and play nice. Mm-hmm. We did not do a great job of that in the beginning when we first hit the scene. It is becoming more and more of a focus, and starting next year, it will be one of our main areas of focus, is highlighting all the great third parties out there. Mm-hmm. Talking about the stuff that we have, so I come from Thinkorsmith, and I created Thinkorsmith back when I first graduated from the University of Oregon with my master's. And we found that it was amazing what you could teach an elementary schooler about computer science when you put it in terms they understand. So when you bring it to their world, I had just come out of a master's level course on finite state automaton, And it was a class that everybody dreaded. And yet, in the matter of a couple of weeks, I was able to manufacture some of those lessons into things appropriate for third graders.
So what is finite automaton?
Finite state automaton. It's basically a machine where you can solve problems by going from state to state. And there are a finite number of states you can go through. So basically, everything has a place and it's mapped out very well. And you can show that on a very low level using different activities and getting kids to pretend to be the machine. And there are ideas that stick with them. We taught them about cues, like arrays and cues, using just little tubes that they dropped stuff into, and whether they could pull it out the bottom or whether they had to pop it off the top. We could teach them about these computational data structures that college students' minds go like this when they get exposed to them. But it's fun to see how much power students get when you introduce these things on their own level and in their own terms. So one of the things when Code.org contacted Thinkersmith to bring these unplugged lessons in was, we want to teach these complex ideas. We want to have kids programming with loops and events and conditionals, if statements. But first, we want them to learn about them in a way that makes sense to them so that we can call back to those experiences when we're doing it on the computer. And so we do things like we make bracelets and we draw, we do paper airplanes, we play card games, and all of these things teach these concepts in a very natural way so that when we're coding and kids don't quite understand what they're supposed to do, you can say, well, remember when you played that card game, and if it was red, you did this, but if it was black, you did that. It's the same kind of thing, only instead of red and black, we're talking about odd and even, you know. So all of those things were fundamental in getting a curriculum that was fun for students and it spoke to them personally. And that's the kind of stuff that we try to incorporate in all of these lessons.
And I think something, just to jump in, Kiki, so as an administrator in a school district, what Kiki is describing is taking content that used to be taught at a high school level in a course, and we're pushing it down to the elementary level. So we're going to be teaching this foundational content now as early as kindergarten, first grade, which means now we are reimagining what that pathway looks like in middle high school, with our ultimate goal in our district then, that computer science is not a siloed course in middle and high school, right? Computer science ultimately, you know, down the road as we build this out, is going to be something that is embedded across all content areas. So computer science, computational thinking, developing apps, developing websites, all of that is going to become it's a form of communication for this next generation of student. The reason that it's not used as much though in classrooms is because our teachers aren't armed with the skill sets to be able to use it. They don't know what would a rubric look like for a lesson like that. How would I assess that?
Right.
Is to use that as a tool. So, you know, it's going to really start as soon as you start talking about bringing computer science, the dominoes that fall, you know, in the years coming as you start sending those kindergartners up to middle and high school with a right. What do we have for them then? And then also the power really does come with how do we make it better?
Yeah. And so, sorry, before you jump in, Kiki, one of our colleagues on the line just noted too that one of the things they really like about Code.org, and it sounds like some of the work too, Courtney, that you're integrating into Reynoldsburg, is that, you know, what's going on is not computer science as a stand-in for coding. It's more hands-on activities that can be done even sometimes without a computer, and, you know, teaching some of those foundational skills and concepts that go beyond just coding.
Right. Absolutely. And one of the reasons that I got into computer science personally was not the computer science itself. It was the problem solving. The problem solving always intrigued me. And I found out, or I just realized that computer science is a great way to expose kids to skills that they don't get other places. Just the ability to constantly hit your head against problems that have never been solved, because you can generate such crazy problems on a computer because the sky's the limit. So you can end up creating things that you can't go Google on, you know, on the internet and say, how do I solve this? Because they've gotten themselves into such a peculiar situation. And so they literally have to learn how to learn. They
Right.
have to learn how to figure things out by themselves. And just that persistence and the ability to persevere through frustration and get exposed to frustration enough that they no longer take it personally, that they realize that it is now a tool, using that frustration as an indicator of what's actually happening, and realizing that that means you're learning and that that's giving you power, not taking it away. And then eventually they get to the place where they get excited because they're at that frustrated moment and they know they're going to figure it out. And as soon as they figure it out, they get that, yes, I got it, I'm the best. And so that becomes the focus of their education, not the, I don't know what I'm doing, I feel like I'm an idiot. Because a lot of times that's where the students stop. They hit that frustration, and classrooms are modeled in many ways to prevent that frustration in the first place. But then if they do hit it, they tend to give up, or at least not make it all the way through the problem that time. But it happens so often in computer science. They have to learn how to make it through the problem. They have to learn how to not give up. And if you're exposing kids to that in kindergarten and first grade, all of a sudden that learning mindset, the growth mindset just jumps in. They have to believe that they can learn things. They have to believe that they can get past the frustration. And then the student you have for the whole rest of your educational career is a completely different student than if they'd never figured that out.
That's great.
So I think what's really, and I don't know if I'm going in and out. I hope I'm not. I keep moving around the room. I'm in the woods in Ohio somewhere, so I think I'm getting a bad connection. But what Kiki's also talking about speaks very much to the STEM approach, right? So what she's talking about, grit, perseverance, design thinking, those are all 21st century skills that in my STEM schools, we hit home every day in the design cycle thinking that we do. And something else to point out, one of the things you're talking about, those students having the persistence and perseverance to move forward to solve these problems. That's the really exciting part about the Hour of Code puzzles that you guys do. You know, they're exciting, they're fun. Kids don't stop. They want to get on to the next level, right? It's a video game. They want to get to the next level. They want to beat their friends. What we have found in our classrooms, especially at the elementary level, is that some of these children who are in their math classes, when we pull out the code.org puzzles, or they get into their courses, right, the module ones, these kids are the leaders in their class. And it's giving them actually such kind of an ego boost that they're good at something and they're the leaders at something and they can show their friends how to do it, right? They're taking that ownership. It is allowing them to, it's spilling over from what I'm hearing from the teachers. It's spilling over into their other subjects where maybe they didn't have perseverance in math or they didn't have perseverance in reading. Because they're finally good at something and they're becoming a leader, it's having a positive impact in other areas. Now, this isn't for all kids, right? I don't want to generalize, but there have been quite a few instances where I've heard this, which is a positive outcome.
And we're getting testimonials like that more and more. Every week we read testimonials in the meeting, and more they're starting to look like, I had a student who was very down on themselves and didn't feel like they were good at anything. They got into coding, they really loved it, and now they've figured out how they can apply that to other areas, and their grades are improving across the board. I'm not saying that's a standard, but I am saying that it is another way to reach out to students. And we feel some of that also with teachers. We have teachers who feel like they are very almost boxed in to teaching a certain curriculum on certain days at certain time. And then they learn that in a math class, they can substitute this lesson, and in an art class they can do that lesson, and they start to realize that they can break themselves out of their own cycle, and they can have that growth mindset about what they're capable of as a teacher. And we have many teachers that are very open about learning alongside their students and taking that I don't have to know everything about this. I only have to be willing to learn alongside, and it seems to work very well also.
Kiki, someone just sent me a message that Exploring STEM said, how do you fit the curriculum into a traditional school day? So before I get into that in Reynoldsburg, at least, I think it's important to note that Code has been very strategic in aligning the curriculum to standards, right? Which is important if you're sitting in a district. We can't teach things for fun because we only have so much time in a day, unfortunately, right? It's the more powerful and meaningful for us if we can align it to something that's tested, unfortunately. That to say, in Reynoldsburg, we've done it a couple different ways that I can share at the elementary level. We do, first and foremost, it's part of our blended learning station rotation model. Some teachers use it as an enrichment piece and a stretch piece for students. Other teachers use it for remediation of certain concepts for students. So it's been part of the stations, and kids love it. It's actually the favorite station, and kids like clap and scream when they get to the code station at school. It's also been problematic in that students have gone through the module very quickly. So again, this is where our teachers have had to find other apps with CS stuff in it to keep these kids going and programming on their own. Another thing to add is that at the some of the schools, we do have some of our specials. So at elementary school, elective classes, we do have those in our district. And rather than having your normal just band or music classes, we do have a computer science coding class. So we have found ways to flex it in, and we're going to keep reimagining this as more and more teachers are trained. Because again, I say, this is something that ultimately, if we do it right, is going to be embedded and not necessarily separate. But we're putting it in now as we build foundation.
Right.
With the ultimate goal that eventually it won't be separate, it will be built within.
And on the goal to embedding, I think it's important to think about who your market is as far as teachers are concerned, because a lot of people think that only the tech teacher needs to go learn this. But at Code.org, we host training for lots of different teachers, and our PD is free. So we have different partnership models. You can have only a K-5 partnership, only a middle school partnership, only a high school partnership, or the whole shebang. And each one of those, if you form a partnership, you get free PD, you get ongoing support from Code.org. Our ongoing support for both middle school and high school is a year long, as far as revisiting and doing online PDs and things like that. We have an active help desk. So you send in a ticket. You can send in a ticket for a broken puzzle, and if it's something that's actually broken and not a misunderstanding, we'll generally turn that around inside of a few days. So you can have students reporting broken tickets, and then they get online a couple days later and notice that the puzzle is fixed, which is really cool. We have office hours for many of our classes where they do monthly webinars that you can go watch and figure out what's going on. We have I personally do YouTube videos that showcase some of our unplugged lessons and how to teach them in the classroom. Just anytime we come up, we have forums, online forums. When we hear from the community that this is going to be an easier way of reaching out to me as a teacher, we try to find a way to make that work, because we do not want lack of confidence or lack of support from your community to be the reason that a teacher doesn't give it a try.
We have another question, Kiki. Someone asked, is this something that could be done while students are in the library at the elementary level? How long are the lessons? Is weekly enough? So from where I sit, yes, the library time, and I don't know how long your library time is. Ours is not nearly long enough, but we have found that even if you have 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, getting kids even just on the code puzzles to start, if you set them up as a class, when they get off, they'll automatically start where they left off the next time around. And as far as the actual length of a lesson in the code modules at elementary, Kiki, can you speak to that? I don't know the time.
It really is up to you. We create each of our stages so that you can get up to halfway done and you'll basically have reached our benchmark for the stage. So anything after halfway done is just icing for your fast students, or if you have more time. An hour a week is more than enough. It is. You could fill every single day of the week if you wanted to, but you definitely don't have to. And we actually find that any exposure, as long as it's positive exposure, so any length of time, is enough to get kids interested. So if you're exposing kids for just a couple of hours during a class one year, they're much more likely to want to take it if it's offered as an elective the following year.
I would say a really great way, especially if you're starting to, I don't know who all the folks are that are joining, where you are in your implementation or your thoughts to implement computer science, especially at the elementary level. I think you don't have to wait till December for CS Ed Week. If you want to have a CS Ed Week in June after testing, or at the end of May when, after everyone's done testing, nothing really is going on anyways. That's a great time to do it, right? Have everyone in the district, have teachers log in and do puzzles. They don't have to set up all their classes via teacher accounts. Students can access the code.org puzzles just on a lark, right? Which is the great part about it. It's so accessible, it's so easy, and people are converted literally after they do one puzzle, and they're excited, and it starts the conversation. And you don't just limit it to go get on code this week and check out this computer science. This is when you put an all call out to your parent community, especially at the elementary level. Those parents, does anybody use computer science in their job? That gets parents hooked. They can come in and talk to classes, talk to the morning meetings, or however it works in that school, to really make connections, again, not just for the kids, but for the teachers who are also still learning about why is it important for students to even care and take computer science, and what will it do for them long term?
Yes. Something that's really fun is combining a showcase, the product of that kind of work, with a fundraiser. So what we like to do is take your youngest kids, take any classroom, and say, you guys are working on a project, and when you're done, we're going to show it off to the community. And then you do a fundraiser at your local pizza parlor and say, come buy pizza, see the coding projects that our kindergartners have done, that our middle schoolers have done, or really the cool stuff that high schoolers can do. And then come buy pizza and see this and talk to the programmers and see what's going on right in your community. It's a really fun blend. It gets the kids really jazzed about it. It provides a little extra money for the classroom or the school. And it just makes everybody feel really appreciated.
Well, and it gives more exposure to, again, one of the biggest barriers to bringing computer science to a district is that no one knows what it is, right? None of the people who make the decisions know what it is. And
right.
And the parents, this goes back to, I was just in a conference today about STEM schools. One of the biggest barriers to bringing STEM to a district is they don't know what it is, and it doesn't look like the school that they went to. And even though they might agree that the school that they went to wasn't awesome, it doesn't look like their school, right? So, half of the battle is just the messaging piece. And so that's why, I'm a firm believer that CS Ed Week is just such a great marketing ploy for the community, for parents, for teachers, to really allow you to level set. This is what it is. This is what it looks and feels like. This is why it's important. Partner with us. It's a great starting point.
And it's more than word processing and searching the web.
Yes.
I think that was one of the hurdles we hit early on, was that schools already assumed they were doing computer science because they had keyboard in class.
Right.
And it's really that education around what computer science is and why students are going to need it as early as 2018. It's going to be really hard for anybody to find a job if they don't have some computer science by 2018. That's soon.
Yeah. So, Courtney, Kiki, I was curious. Someone just asked a question about this, about whether or not there are kind of informational advocacy communication tools that folks could share with their administrators or schools, their families, about the importance of CS education and what it is that you guys have pulled together.
Yes. So if you go to the code.org/educate page, I'm going to go there now. I'm trying to decide if I want to actually screen share, because it's a lot of pressure for me to find stuff on our own site in front of everybody. But let me do that.
I can start pulling something up if you want to keep talking us through it.
Well, I've got something on here now.
Here we go.
So we have resources, and here we have tools and videos. We have information on partnering, and part of joining the community and clicking in as an educator is that you can get information to support what you're trying to do. So you can find local workshops, and you can actually showcase what the workshop is going to do for you as a teacher. Let's see, there should be tools. Here we go. So you have email, you have a one-pager.
So that one-pager I have used, I still use to this day. I keep a stack in my office, and when people come in and they ask about computer science, I hand it to them.
Yes.
I mean, it's very, very helpful for messaging.
And then we have the video library that gives all sorts of videos on the importance, the basics of computer science. We have inspirational videos on inspiring girls and just computer science in general. This is the video that launched 1,000 ships, what most schools don't teach, and that's been very, very effective. We have a 1 minute from the president, but actually what's even more helpful in getting people to listen is his most recent State of the Union, where he flat out calls it a basic building block of education. And there's so much right now.
There are tools for everyone, and I think it just gets to like, who is your audience, right? So with with the parents, when we try to convert them, or when we do a CS Ed Week event or a computer science event at a school, it's taking one of the videos, one of the really short minute and a half videos they have with celebrities and famous people, gets them excited, makes it feel mainstream. With superintendents, they have a great PowerPoint. I think, Kiki, you guys still have that PowerPoint slide deck?
We do, yeah.
Somewhere, right? That for boards of education and superintendents, they have some really good slides on the what, the whys, the hows of computer science education. That's useful. And then, like she pointed out before, the email is definitely something that we have diced and spliced and sent out a couple different times in different ways. So I think, that's the nice part about Code. Sitting where I sit and with what I do, it's not only a resource for curriculum and content, it's a resource for advocacy, and it's a resource for messaging. And, I don't know about other people in other states. We have a very lean district. So I don't have a whole office of people that are working on this. So when you decide to commit to computer science and you reach out to Code, the support is immense, and it's been pretty fantastic.
Cool. Also, I just want to, some of the folks that called in can't see our texts or our chats going back and forth. So we will send out a link afterwards to all the folks with the resources page and how to get to the videos and everything for you. Also, I just want to point out too, some of our other colleagues on the line have actually, started to implement computer science within their states and districts. Our folks from the Science Foundation of Arizona and Arizona STEM Network are now partnering with Code.org and have assisted with training over 150 K-6 teachers from all over the state in just the last 3 months. And they're also supporting a pipeline program for underrepresented youth, K12 in inner city Phoenix. And I'm not sure if the folks at Exploring STEM want to say a little bit more about what's going on there, how it's been to work with Code.org, or just provide a bit more information on how this partnership has come together. And you'll have to unmute yourself first.
Hi, Michael. It's me, Linda. How are you?
Hey, Linda.
We just became a state partner with Code.org this last week in working with David Bernier and Karina. And we're also partnering up with Grand Canyon University. And so we have two state entities that are very much interested in computer science and are excited about this latest development. So one of the objectives of the Arizona STEM Network is to engage business and industry into education. And it's the business and industry community that's actually very much pushing schools and districts to adopt computer science education. So because of that, they are able to provide us with financial resources where it may be difficult to offer a professional development training, a full-day professional development training for teachers on a Saturday. We can actually provide them, and Code.org training is free, but we can perhaps provide them stipends, lunches, travel, accommodations, facilities. And so we can support that training through help by collaborating with other businesses and industries within our state. And so we've used the Code.org curriculum. We've also paired that with Google CS First at the middle school level. And we've added in Finch, Hummingbird, robots, and just put together this great little plan that's leading into 4-year high school programs at several of our high schools within the state.
That's great. And I'm curious too, the last time I was down there, I think you mentioned that Arizona is working on a program to bring computer science to some of the Native American communities down there. I'm curious how that's going, whether there has been, what the transition to kind of bringing this curriculum to a different population has been like.
Oh, it's been great. We currently have established partnerships with 3 school districts on the Navajo Indian Reservation, Chinle High School, Kayenta High School, and Tuba City. It's actually a BIA school. The other 2 are just traditional public schools. But Gray Hills Academy is a BIA school, so kind of, diving into that arena. But offering Explore Computer Science Principles. We'll be working with David Bernier this summer to bring the teachers down to Phoenix to do a training at the Phoenix Coding Academy. And then hooking up to offer AP Computer Science Principles, the new Code.org course.
That's great. And then, kind of building on that, Courtney, I know the Code.org elementary curriculum and sports, aren't meant to cover everything you might want to do in computer science for every grade band and every grade level. So I was curious, what else you're doing within the elementary school levels to kind of support computer science education.
Sure. So I think, I don't know how many other folks on the phone have been following the K12 CS framework that's been developed in recent months. They just released the high school portion a month or so ago, and they're going to be adding K8 here in, I guess, the next week or so. But the idea is they're creating a list of concepts and skills that all students need to know by grade band K through 12. As an administrator in a school district, they are giving me a roadmap that I will then align. Okay, so if my kids need to know this by the end of 2nd grade, where are they going to get the content and the knowledge and the skills, right, from K2, right? So we have been participating in the conversation in the K12 CS framework conversation, and we are following it closely. It'll be released this summer. I can say that other resources that we use at the elementary level in the meantime, so, we're building right now. We're building what does our pathway look like for computer science this year, knowing that with the kindergartners, we're starting at a different place than the 6th and 7th graders who are just starting, right? So this is a pathway that will have to evolve over the next 10, 12 years a lot as we start at different places. But at the elementary school, we have been really fortunate to find some pretty amazing apps. So Box Island is one, especially in the younger elementary grades, that my teachers really like. They really like the Foos, which is really big into sequencing and looping. My son, who's 5.5, loves the Foos. And we also do Scratch Junior. Scratch Junior has been a great tool for kids.
Lightbot Junior is a lot of fun too.
Which one?
Lightbot Junior.
Oh, Lightbot, yes, that's a good one as well. Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll get more meaningful, I think, with the sequencing once we have a better roadmap. Because again, I am the computer science person in the district, and I have no background in computer science, right? So as my kids in elementary are going through the program, so am I. I'm learning too, right? And I think that's normal, and that's okay. And as long as we engage the experts and I think take advantage and leverage all of the great conversation around computer science right now, I think we'll all build something pretty special for kids.
That's great.
Yeah. Well said.
So, I know there are a few other states within the network that are implementing or trying to push computer science forward. I'm not sure if Angela, you want to say anything about how it's been trying to get computer science started within Idaho, and what you're looking at there as initial steps to bring things forward. And then another question I just had for Kiki as well is how do the relationships between schools and code.org or districts and code.org typically get started? Are there goals that are set out between code.org and those schools? Are there particular folks they should be reaching out to, or just issues like that?
Yeah, so you can go on the website, on the Educate website I showed, and literally reach out. There's an application you can fill out about your district, and we'll kind of try and figure out what the interest is. We have outreach people. So in the Pacific Northwest, it's Namisha Goshroy, and she's there to work with everybody in that area. We have a Chicago person. We have a South Florida and Southern States person. Basically, we have somebody that covers every segment of the map. So, excuse me, if you just reach out and say that you're interested in exploring a partnership, we have somebody that can help figure out what your needs are and how we can help. And then it just kind of starts to form from there. It's very specific based on your region, because some people need a big bing, bang, boom. Everybody's implementing everything right now, like New York and LA and San Francisco and Arizona, or Arkansas. They're kind of like, we're all in, all at the very moment. And then we have other states that are just very tentative, and we want to try this district. Yep. And see what happens. And then we have others like Oregon who can't really even get a group big enough to believe that they are ready to jump in and try it. Mm-hmm. So we work with all those different types to try and figure out what works best, because the thing we do not want to do is push someone too fast or too far and get them to a point where they can't sustain whatever they try. It's really, really important to realize that if you're going to do it, it only makes sense to do it well. And by well, we don't mean with all of the knowledge and expertise that ever existed. It means thinking of it more like a arts class, like a creative class, allowing your students to drive their education, allowing the teacher to have a mindset that I'm learning alongside my students. Mm-hmm. All of those things, if you're willing to do that, students will feel ownership over their own education, and it'll go really well. Mm-hmm. The worst case scenario is suddenly you're forcing everybody to take computer science. The classes that you're using are not great classes, and you're actually scaring people away in larger quantities than you're romancing them. Yeah. So we just want to make sure that everything is a positive experience for everybody involved.
So I'm going to not push too hard, but let me jump in there. I don't think we should force people to do this, but I think that we need to stop dancing around the absolute truth that to be a productive citizen in the age in which we live, in this technology age, our kindergartners need to have this as a foundational content knowledge, right? And so I think we've done a great job kind of putting it out there and letting people dip their toe. But at some point, we have to go from toe dipping to just ripping our clothes off and jumping in the water, right? I mean, at some point, we have to really be honest about the importance of this and that it is a priority alongside reading, writing, math, science, social studies. I'm assuming everyone on the call, there might be, you're only on this call because you're either interested in computer science or you believe in it and you do it already. So I'm probably screaming to the masses here, but, and I understand what code has to do, but as a district person, I'm sitting here going, I don't understand. We need to be all in because I'm in the business of doing what's best for kids. I'm in the business of making them college, career, and life ready. That is my job. I will give them the opportunities that do that. And to me, where I sit in this world, computer science is that. So
that's fantastic.
Amen from M. Mannion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I saw a lot of head nodding too during that. So I think we mostly have the choir on.
I'm off my pedestal. I'll get that.
That's all right. Good to have the encouragement. And so also I noticed when I asked Angela the question at first, I actually had her on mute. So I just want to check, Angela, if you wanted to jump in with anything about what's going on in Idaho.
Well, yesterday, the Computer Science Initiative legislation that we ran did pass the House. It has now been nearly, it's through the House and Senate, actually. It heads to the governor's desk to be signed. So we are absolutely delighted that it had such strong bipartisan support. Only a couple legislators voted against it, so it's been incredibly well accepted. And then today we found out that they did go ahead and appropriate $2 million to the initiative so we can actually carry out some of the kind of what's embedded in there, which is not just focused on K-12. At the STEM Action Center, we focus very heavily on K to career. So we'll be working with Department of Labor in addition to some of the K-12 and higher ed institutions to really determine what are the low-hanging fruits that we can tackle next year and, show some quick wins. We're looking at everything from grants to educators for Code.org professional development to devices for schools, talking a little bit about broadband, but I think that's probably beyond our bandwidth. And then also, what do we do for those in the workforce already that need just a little bit additional training, or they're job switchers, or potentially the unemployed? So we'll be looking in there as well. We have a number of kind of for-profit institutions that have sort of taken off that are offering opportunities for coding boot camps and that sort of stuff. So we'll have to really evaluate what's currently going on in the system and figure out where we're going to put our money. But I'm just absolutely delighted the legislation is through, headed to the governor's desk, and it came with a decent amount of appropriations. So we're pretty happy here in Idaho.
That's fantastic.
Good job, Idaho. Ohio's jealous. Well done.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear. I know it's been a long time coming that you guys have been working on this, so it's fantastic to see or hear of the fruits of the labor. And I just also want to let you know we're at about the 10-minute warning here, just so folks know. We'll start wrapping up with about 5 minutes left. I see we have another comment coming in from our colleagues in Arizona. That's really hard to change a generation of school administrators and leaders that have no clue of the value or need for CS. We find businesses on board along with parents and teachers, but there's still a struggle with school leaders, at least in the Arizona. I see some head nodding in agreement.
So let me speak to that really quick, because this is actually near and dear to my heart. Ohio just released their state data, right? We live by data. We live by reading, math, science every other year data that comes out from the state. That's why administrators have a really hard time understanding and caring, right? So, I think this goes back to, if you can get your OD or your Department of Educations to really invest and be part of this conversation so that they prioritize it, that is what I hear. I don't know this. That's what I hear can be really helpful as to empower and allow for school leaders to change their mindset. Because as long as they get a scarlet letter associated with data that in their mind has nothing to do with computer science, math and reading have nothing to do with computer science, especially not the way it's tested in my state, right? Then it's something that it's not even if they believe in it, they feel like they have time for it. They don't feel like they have time for it because their focus is on that letter grade, right? So it does take a special person to put that to the side. But it's that darn data.
Yeah. Well, and we're also looking at entirely different mindsets as far as almost technology and geek culture goes. Also, if you look at people ages 18 and up right now versus under 18, 18 and up tends to have the stigma that people in technology are all geeky and wear broken glasses and pocket protectors, and the geek is a bad thing and it's something we want to stay away from. Whereas if you actually look at the attitudes of people under 18 today, technology people are seen as rock stars. Like there's a big trend toward dressing like a geek, and more and more people want to claim that they do technological things that they might not even do yet. There's a different attitude, and we haven't necessarily caught up. The administrators aren't listening to what the kids want and what the parents even want for their kids. Google ran a really interesting survey. I'm trying to remember the name, but it's eluding me now because I know we're under 10 minutes. They ran an actual formal survey where they interviewed people to find out their attitudes about teaching computer science in the schools. And 90% of parents wanted their kids to learn computer science. Only 60% thought that 60-some% thought it should be required. But 90% of parents wanted their kids to learn this. And the administration doesn't realize that yet. They don't realize that there's such huge support for it because they're in a microcosm where they're constantly getting picked on for choices that they make, you know? So just spreading some of that information, having letters from the parents to the administration saying, we're interested in this, what can our first steps be? Just making it visible that this is actually something that's now desired and seen as a good thing, and not something that the principal has to protect the teachers from, or the superintendent doesn't even have time for. That's
why, again, I go back to a CS Ed week is such a great week to do it, right? I mean, it's a great way to get everyone exposed to CS and what it is, and help those people understand and see value, especially as they see these parents come out of the woodwork that they've never seen come to their kids' schools, right? But they're excited about this. They're intrigued. They want to see. They want to know, right? You know, there's a lot of educating happening with the CS movement on every single level, right? And my hope is that more we can educate parents, teachers, administrators, superintendents, state officials, industry, right? And the more we can get everyone kind of talking together, we'll see more change quickly at all levels.
That's great. And so that kind of brings us near the end of our discussion today. So I just want to do a little wrapping up. And first, I want to thank Courtney and Kiki for getting on and kind of walking us through what is going on with computer science within K-5, how Code.org is operating in that space, how it's looked at the ground level within your district in Ohio, even though it sounds like there's not as much support for it as there could be, and that we'd like to have for it. And hopefully, we can continue to work together to change that situation and bring more people into the fold and understand the importance of computer science. So, with that, I just want to make a few announcements. One, next month when we do our webinar, which will be on providing STEM in out-of-school and after-school environments, we're actually changing software. Unfortunately, our contract with Zoom is up, so we'll be moving to WebEx. So look forward to downloading maybe some new software to make that work next month. But it should not be too onerous. Definitely don't panic. And I just want to thank everyone for being on the call and staying on the call. We really appreciate it. And I hope folks are also aware of kind of the large amount of funding that's potentially going to be out there that the administration keeps calling for. It looks like NSF will have a bit more funding. We're not exactly sure how much, but some of it actually might be useful for the work going on in Arizona and some of the other states. So Linda, I'll definitely follow up with you about it, and look forward to hearing more about what's going on in Idaho and some of the other states like Washington and Maryland that are making great progress in this area. Thanks so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having me, everybody.